And good Tuesday, everybody. Glad you're with us. Hope everything is well where you are. Trey Wingo and Justin Ray here for another episode of Golf Live. Three, two, one. As we got all kinds of things going on in the background. For contextual purposes, I of course am here in Kapalua and Maui, and Justin Ray this week. The great Justin Ray apparently is coming to us from the con of the Starship Enterprise. Justin, where are you right now?
I didn't know if Duncan was going to unmute me or I was. I'm at one of the great cathedrals of American sports, Trey, where an
Okay.
American sports legend is making a comeback. You think great sporting venues in the America: Yankee Stadium, Boston Garden, Augusta National, Pebble Beach, and of course you think of the SoFi Center, which just opened up, where Tiger Woods will make a comeback, and the first hole of the night will involve lava. So we're very
Okay.
excited. We're going to crown a champion. Seriously, we're going to crown a champion. TGL wise, LA leads 1-0. They've got to win once. Jupiter's going to try to come back, force match 3. It's been a lot of fun all year. Both seasons have been a big part of this, but yeah, get to see Tiger Woods hit some golf shots today and crown a champion. So it's a pretty exciting day here in South Florida.
That will be fun, and we'll talk a lot more about that in just a little bit. But again, we're going to cover the spectrum of things that have gone on in the world of golf over the past week. We do this every Tuesday afternoon, 4 o'clock Eastern, live on YouTube, live on X, or as it will always be known, Twitter. And if you want to be a part of the conversation, please drop some questions in the chat. We will get to those at the end of the show. We want to make you as much of a part of the show as we are, because if you're not watching, we're not doing this. So we want you to be included in the process, and make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on my YouTube channels, Trey Wingo and Trey Wingo Golf. And when you do that, also make sure you hit the bell so you'll get notifications of when we drop new videos and new interviews, so you won't miss a thing. So again, we've got a lot to get into this week. And again, we have some foreshadowing from Tiger Woods playing tonight in the TGL and what that might mean going forward for his appearance in the Masters. But before we get all to that, we've got a lot of things to recap on. And by the way, I just want to say from a personal standpoint, I know a lot of people have reached out to me wondering if things were okay where we are in Maui because of the torrential floods that we've had here. Honestly, the sun is out today for the first time in about 13 to 14 days. I appreciate that. We are fine. We are safe. Most of the island is in good shape, and just parts of it, obviously, were hit really hard. Just keep Hawaii and Maui in your thoughts and prayers, and hopefully things are turning around as the sun is out. We're staring at that orange circular object and trying to figure out what that is in the sky that's putting this heat on our face. It's been a while. But Justin, speaking
It might be
heat,
the ominous voice talking to me.
that is true. You have voice of God behind you counting, which is always a fun part of the show.
Voice of taking
So,
team pictures here for the Tomorrow Sports crew. Yeah.
well,
Bear
the
with us.
beautiful part of this is it's going to prove how good you are at multitasking and compartmentalizing the sounds that are permeating your brain at the moment. But we have a lot to get to, including we talk about things heating up. Matthew Fitzpatrick did it again. Matt Fitzpatrick almost won at the Players Championship a week ago, and then comes through with a birdie on the last to win the Valspar, and really an indication of just how good his game is at the moment, Justin.
Yeah, what's really been kind of breathtaking statistically to see from Matt Fitzpatrick this season is just how much his approach play has improved. You look a couple of seasons ago, he was outside the top 100. He's climbed, entering the Valspar Championship, into the top 15, and then he was second in the week in strokes gained approach at Valspar, first in strokes gained tee to green. It's going into Augusta National, where he doesn't necessarily have a ton of great finishes, but he's played there 11 times now, a couple of top 10 results. It's the definition of a second shot golf course at Augusta National. Each of the last, I think it's 7 or 8 winners have ranked in the top 6 that week in strokes gained approach. Going to be very important for Fitzpatrick going into the season's first major championship. I also want to say the Valspar quietly kind of annually really delivers, even though
It absolutely does.
the field is kind of squeezed because it's in that stretch where we got the Players and the Masters coming up and the signature events like Bay Hill. So it gets a little squeezed from a schedule point of view, but it's a golf course that's not like a lot of other golf courses in Florida. So guys like playing it, and it just seems to always deliver. And we had a packed leaderboard with some great storylines. Daniel Lipsky, who's been a journeyman all over. I've followed him since he played at Northwestern. But he's won in places like Cambodia, and just a true journeyman player. It was cool to see him contend, almost get that win, and then see Brant Snedeker pop up. Shades of Keegan Bradley last year. Brant Snedeker, President's Cup captain for the United States this season. being competitive and kind of a blast from the past there. But I thought it was a great weekend of golf and a great finish there at the Valspar Championship.
Well, it certainly was. And we can talk about Snedeker here for a minute. This is a guy who hasn't won since the 2018 Wyndham Championships. I mean, it's been a minute. And he's only 45, and I say that when you look at Justin Rose and the things that he's doing at about that same age. And of course, a few years ago, we saw Phil win the PGA Championship at the age of 51, oldest man to win a major. He clearly has game left in him. And, obviously he was disappointed with the way he finished. He was tied for the lead heading into the back nine and threw away a couple of shots, missed a couple of greens. And so he lamented about it. But how much does a guy like that take away from his performance over the entirety of the 4 days when you look at it in comparison to, say, what Justin Rose did at Torrey Pines and what we're seeing some of these other players do into their mid and late 40s and be extremely competitive on the PGA Tour?
Yeah, he reminded himself who he is. He's a guy who's won, I think,
Yeah.
9 times on tour, been on President's Cup teams. He's been, a top 10 player in the world at times in his career. And to just get a sniff of that again, to be in the hunt again, I mean, that's going to go miles for his confidence. See, this is always a player who he's not the longest guy on tour. There were certain courses where he could really compete. That's why he was so good at the Wyndham Championship. I think he's won it 2 or 3 times. But there are golf courses where, like, a guy like him, like one of our guests from a couple of weeks ago, Zach Johnson, guys who aren't necessarily the longest players on tour can really maximize their opportunity. Kevin Kisner, who played here for Jupiter Links last night, same kind of vein. And as you get older, he doesn't necessarily lose a whole lot from that bag that made him great. His short game, that pop stroke with a putter, he can get his short irons really heated up. That's not an element of his game that's really it's not something that's going to dissipate as he gets older, right? So
Right.
he can maybe follow the path of like Stuart Sink, who late in his 40s, I think he was 47, 48, picked off a couple of victories and then transitioned into being a monster on PGA Tour champions. He's not quite there yet. He's got some time left before he gets to that point, but it was really cool to see because he's always been, one of the more fun, unique short game approaches, putting strokes. It was cool to see Brandt Snedeker pop up and be relevant again on Sunday on the PGA Tour.
It is interesting that it happens right as we really start gearing up for the first major of the year, the Masters, because I can't remember what year it was, but it was one year he was in contention at Augusta. And, at the press conference afterwards, he just broke down. And I remember him saying, I can't explain to you why I'm so emotional about this right now. But, when I saw him talking about coming up short on Sunday, after, again, 8 years in between his last win and this attempt to win, it just reminded me of that press conference at Augusta where he couldn't stop it, right?
Yeah.
It just kept coming out of him. It was so emotional. And I love those moments because you get into sort of this rote thought process on tour. Well, the purses are high, they're making money. As long as they're making cuts, it's the Charles Howell III ATM scenario, right? Millions and millions of dollars, hardly ever wins, but is always in the top 10. Maybe they're satisfied. And when you see something like this happen, whether it was Augusta all those years ago or this past weekend at the Valspar, they want to win. They want to have that feeling. They want to prove that they can still do it again. And I think sometimes that gets lost in the narrative. Hey, make top tens, make a lot of money, everything's good.
Yeah, I think sometimes we just lose it in the genial nature of what most of golf is that these guys are really fiery competitors. They want to go out there and kick your ass, basically, when they show up on the
Right.
tee. And it's not just about, getting a check and moving on. I mean, maybe there's a small sliver of guys who get to a point in their career where it's like that. But you could tell by the way Brandt Snedeker was talking to Todd Lewis and talking to reporters after the round, how he felt about his opportunity to get back on the winner's circle. He really believed in it, and he got pretty close. Just Matt Fitzpatrick didn't make a bogey over the last 36 holes. He's the first guy to win the Valspar, not making a bogey or worse over the last 2 rounds in 13 years. So really hard to do around that golf course, and something Fitzpatrick was able to pull off.
You mentioned talking to reporters. We should mention that our guest this week will be longtime Golf Channel and NBC commentator Steve Sands, talking about the things that he saw on the Florida swings and what's going to happen up there. And I'm sure we'll sneak in some Commanders talk at some point when Steve joins us in just a few minutes. But you mentioned Valspar, and we talked about this last week, Justin. This was the last course that a lot of the players will play who are in the Masters that is going to be something that looks like the course of Augusta. Because we talked about the Houston Open and then the Valero. Those are totally different tracks. For the guys that were in the field, how much do you think they were thinking about shots that they might need to play in a couple of weeks at Augusta?
Yeah, and just for fans who aren't locked into the course changes and movements for the Houston Open the last several years, for years, Redstone Golf Club of Houston, it was built up and prepared as Masters preparation. Famously, Phil Mickelson played there every year, the week before going to Augusta National. But Memorial Park, while personally I think is a better golf course than what they had before, it's not necessarily that same kind of prep. So I think
Correct.
a lot of guys, look, they're going to have to take everyone's preparation is different going into a major championship, especially the Masters. You've seen players who, like Tiger, for years and years wouldn't play for weeks and weeks before the first major of the year, and then guys who wanted to get those reps at a golf course that was similar. I'm not saying Innisbrook is like Augusta National, but it's close. You see some of those shots around the green are going to be closer than what you might see in Houston and definitely in San Antonio in a couple of weeks. So still got a little bit of time there to kind of space out, what you saw at Valspar and what to expect of the Masters, but something to take into account.
Yeah, it's just a different look. Like we said, the two courses coming up next will have a totally different feel to
Yeah,
the layout as opposed to what you're going to see in a couple of weeks at Augusta. And we talked about this off at the top of the show, and we've sort of had little nuggets, little hints, if you will, little Easter eggs about Tiger's plans for Augusta. When he was asked about it at the Genesis at Riviera, he says it's not out of the picture. Then, of course, over the last week or so, we just happened to notice that Tiger Woods' jet was in Augusta, and that seemed like he was trying to see if there's some preparations that he could get done. And of course, as you alluded to at the top of the show, Tiger Woods will make his season debut in the season finale of the TGL this week. It all seems like this is a buildup to, I think he's going to give it a go.
I can't confirm though that there are no holes with lava at Augusta National, so we can just scratch that off. I don't know how much he's going to glean from his play here on Flex to open up tonight's match, but no, look, anytime you get to see Tiger after all these surgeries and all these years hit some shots in a competitive environment, kind of sees and relish that opportunity is just a fan of the sport. But yeah, it is encouraging. And look, he was as fluidly moving and as upbeat yesterday as I think I've seen him all season at TGL. And word kind of was getting around yesterday afternoon, like, I think he's going to play. I think he's going to play one of these matches. And then lo and behold, about 30 minutes after the match ended last night, we got word he was going to tee it up. So I'm excited to see it. I don't know how much we're going to learn about Augusta National. The challenge there obviously is the walk more so than
Yeah.
what he's going to do with the golf club. So we'll see how it pans out. But for now, we get to watch him in a little bit of a competitive arena tonight.
Unfortunately for Tiger, it's always about the walk, right? No matter where it is. And, Augusta, for people that don't know or aren't as familiar, that's as challenging a walk as there is on the PGA Tour right now. I mean,
For
you,
sure.
you could say back in the day, I guess what they do up here where I am at Kapalua is probably a more challenging walk, although they had SUVs to take them from the fifth green to the sixth tee, but that's really a separate issue. It is as tough as it's going to be on him. I mean, I've heard this for years from guys on tour. If he would take a card, he'd probably win 3 times a year. It's just can he withstand the physical pounding of walking 18 holes 4 straight days? The swing has always looked good.
Something he wouldn't have to do if he tees it up on the Champions Tour later this year.
Which he has alluded to, and Nota Begay alluded to, that it might be something that he is thinking about. So we'll see what that happens going forward. But as we said, Steve Sands is going to join us, knows a little thing or two about covering Tiger and covering Scotty Scheffler. How do you handle covering dominant players in different ways when it seems like every time they're on the course, they're the most likely favorite, and how do you manage expectations for both of these players heading into Augusta? So stay with us. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we will talk to Steve Sands on the other side. Hey, before we get to the next segment, just want to clue you in on something. If you've got a question for us, do us a favor, throw it in the super chat right here on YouTube. And I mean this, we answer every single super chat, not just the ones that are easy, not just the ones that are flattering, because we don't really have any of those. We'll answer all of them. If you're taking the time to support the show, the least we can do is respond. Just let's make sure it's not anything profane, because, It's a family show. So if you've got something on your mind, drop it here in the super chat and we will respond. So if you consider yourself more of an audio person, look, I totally get it. The Trey Wingo Network is now available on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, etc., 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 wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen in the car, gym, on a walk, wherever you carve out that little space where you need to just get away from everything. Same conversations, just without the camera. Hey, subscribe across the platforms and share it with your family and friends. Follow the Trey Wingo Network. Hey, if you're new here, first of all, welcome. We're glad you found us. We launched this platform really at the beginning of September, late August in 2025, right before the start of the Ryder Cup, which did not go well for the U.S., but this platform has gone way better than we thought it would. It's grown so fast, we really can't believe it. We've had incredible conversations with so many people across sports. Justin Thomas and Kevin Kisner, Brandel Chambly, Dan Lanning, Mike Elko, Daniel Jones, just to name a few. And here's what I'll say. Our conversations are different. It's not the same stuff you'll see everywhere else. We try and take you behind the curtain a little bit to get to know the people we're talking to instead of just asking them rote questions about their last round of golf or their next game. We go a little bit deeper to get real information. No bits, no bullshit, just a ball podcast. And if you've just found us, there's a huge library of conversations waiting for you to consume. We hope you enjoy them. All right, welcome back to Golf Live. Glad you're with us. Trey Wingo, Justin Ray, streaming on YouTube and on Twitter. And we are delighted, as promised, to be joined by a good friend of both of ours, longtime commentator for the Golf Channel and NBC, does great work. As we have alluded to, also a huge Washington Commanders fan, none other than Steve Sands, representing the Commanders t-shirt right out of the gate. And we appreciate that show of loyalty, my friend.
Hey, old RFK t-shirts, baby. We're coming back in 2030 to the site where it belongs.
Yeah, by the way, we'll get into golf, I promise. I love the idea that they're coming back. Like,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
For whatever, FedEx Field just was a house of horrors. It's the only stadium I know where constantly sewage would just dump itself on its own fans. You know, that field has always been problematic. It just feels right that the Commanders, formerly the football team, and the Redskins are going to be back in D.C. in that same place where you could watch the stands bounce up and down.
I'm 57 years old, Trey. If you grew up in D.C., where I grew up at my age, RFK Stadium was a legendary spot. Ask anybody who ever played in that era, they'll tell you the same thing. That's where the Skins belong. It belongs back in the city. A lot of politics involved as to why it happened all those years ago, and having it come back involved a lot of politics as well. But they certainly belong in the nation's capital.
Politics
they certainly
in that part
do.
Of the country? Oh,
no,
you got to be kidding.
Gosh, it's awful.
Well, it's interesting, Stephen. I wasn't planning on going down this road, but since you brought that up, you know, it's good to have them back in D.C. That is something that Brian Rolapp, the CEO of the PGA Tour, has been very adamant about. We need to be where the people are. We need to have events in New York, in Boston, in Chicago, in Washington, D.C. As a D.C. native or close by, that has to make you feel good about what the future of the PGA Tour might be in your adopted hometown, basically.
It does, Trey and Justin, but you got to be careful what you wish for. You want to go to those major. Look, the PGA Tour does not have a stop in Chicago, in Boston, in New York, in Philadelphia, in DC, in Denver, in Seattle. These are big-time major markets. That is a separate issue from what Brian Rolapp, I think, wants. What he wants is having big events in big cities at big-time venues. I don't see Congressional, Marion, Butler National, Cherry Hills, Sahali, all these the Country Club, Shinnecock, Wingfoot, wherever, all these big cities and big courses. I just don't see the membership of those courses, Trey, giving up their courses every single year. They do it at majors every 8 or 10 years, and maybe they'll do it every 8 or 10 years at a PGA Tour event. But I don't know if they're going to agree, the membership agreeing to do that. The concept is great, but I'm not sure the PGA Tour in those cities and those courses are all going to match up.
Well, that's interesting because I think, and Justin and I have talked about this a bunch, I think one of the brilliant things of what Brian is doing is he's putting out concepts.
Yeah.
He hasn't yet, it's not an Excel spreadsheet yet. It's like, here are some thoughts. The 6-pronged approach he put in that press conference before the Players' Championship. And I really believe he did that for a reason. I think he wants to see how people react to it and how they digest to it and what they say about it. And I think that's been part of his overall plan from the beginning is, he came in and said, look, I'm not a golf guy. I haven't grown up in the sport. I'm learning along with you guys, and I want to hear what you think. I want to hear what the fans think. I want to hear what the people that run these courses think. And I do believe that when it's all said and done, that's going to be a big part of this process, which I believe is going to be announced in some sort of finality in June. He's counting on the feedback.
Yeah, the next player, the next board meeting will be the Travelers Championship. That's the week after the U.S. Open at Shinnecock, the week after Father's Day in late
Right.
June. That's when it traditionally is. And he'll probably have a press conference there with some announcements. Some stuff might get leaked out before then because the players are going to have to know what the schedule is. Sponsors are going to have to know what the schedule is in the next couple of months before that. But one thing that I think is fascinating, Trey and Justin, and you guys are as big a sports fans as I am, I think it's a good thing that Rolap is not a golf guy. And here's why.
100%.
He is
100%.
he is coming at this from a huge NFL mafioso way of looking at things outside of the golf space. So he needs to learn the golf world from the golf people. But the golf people are so entrenched in the golf world, they need to learn a little bit about the
Correct.
absolute umbrella that is the sports world. So I think the two of them coming together, to your point, Trey, about floating things out there. I can tell you one thing. When he made that announcement about the six, items that he wanted on his list, the one thing that stood out to the players and everybody involved, the sponsors and the players, the two biggest pieces of the puzzle, and television, by the way, 120 fields with cuts. That's a
Yep.
big thing. When they were talking about 70 player fields and no cuts, that's not the way the PGA Tour works, and history
Correct.
matters. And you want to go to that other league and not have a cut, go ahead and do that. That's perfectly fine. But in this league, in this sport, at this level, under this leadership, 120-man fields and a cut every 36 holes is a really important thing to the players and the sponsors. Those two things went over very, very well.
Shift gears a little bit, Steve. I wanted to talk about, you covered Tiger Woods for years and years, and now we've seen what Scotty Scheffler's done the last 4 or 5 seasons. From my perspective as the stats guy, I always end up when Scotty's doing something great, half the time more than half the time, it turns into some insane Tiger Woods fact or statistic. And
Right.
so I wanted to ask, what are the challenges of covering a truly dominant player? And is it like there are challenges involved? There are obviously things that might make it a little bit easier. The difference between covering an event with a player like Scotty who's dominating and a clustered leaderboard like we had last week at the Valspar
Right.
Championship.
Well, the biggest challenge is that when he's the biggest star in the field, like this week in Houston, and then his wife Meredith is about to give birth and withdraws, that's a challenge.
Yes.
Because we needed Scotty
Or
in that
problem,
field.
challenge, problem, challenge.
We needed Scotty in that field in your beloved hometown of Houston, Texas, Justin. One of the things I find the most difficult about Scotty and his domination, remember, it's been 4 years and a month since he won for the first time on the PGA Tour, the
2022.
WM Phoenix Open.
Yep.
All right, that was Super Bowl weekend in 2022. He now has all those majors, back-to-back players, number one in the world forever, the longest cut streak, 20 career victories. It's a problem, and it's a problem to have to try to not compare him to the greats of all time. And my opinion is you don't want to rub anointing oil all over people before you really should. And the sample size is getting large. It's now 4+ years. He's already won this year. People think he's not playing that great. He's playing just fine, and he's
Correct.
going to be just fine. He already has a win already this season, and he will start ramping up as he gets to Augusta. He did want to play this week to get another start in, by the way, before going to Augusta to try to win the Masters for the third time. But the biggest challenge, Justin, is keeping your mouth shut and trying to not compare him to what we've seen in the past. McIlroy from 11 to 14 was incredible. Justin Thomas had his run. Jordan Spieth from 14 to 17. There have been a lot of players who have had that kind of 3-4 year seasons of incredible golf. Let's see the sample size get larger for Scotty, even though it's getting to that point. It's not quite there yet. To compare him to some of the all-time greats,
No.
especially a guy like Tiger, to me, it's just a little bit too early. Even Scotty would tell you that. It's a little too early to start talking about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I
Well,
think I think
yeah.
it's October 2035 where Scotty needs to stay number one till, and then
Yeah.
he'll be a month away from Tiger.
Well, the cut
Yeah.
streak thing, Tiger will tell you 15 is major championships, 82 is the number of wins on the PGA Tour, and 142 is his cut
42.
streak. If you ask him,
Yeah.
he'll tell you 142 is every bit as not as maybe meaningful, but as impactful to him as those other two. It's a very big deal. Scotty's about halfway to that point, and right now he's leading the way. He's in the, I think, early 70s as far as how many cuts he's made in a row. So he's got a long ways to go, but he certainly is trending in the right direction if you want to start comparing him to some of those all-time greats.
Steve, we talk about this all the time on this show, and that cut streak, I don't think people understand. Like
Incredible.
I remember it was either 99 or Torrey Pines or maybe 98. He made the cut on the number and then won by 10 over the weekend. Like
Yeah.
the ability of that dude to turn a 75 into a 69 and hang around was, I think, his greatest attribute that nobody talks about.
Trey, 1 year at Cog Hill in the early 2000s when the streak was going on. I
Yeah,
forget what it was called back then. Now it's the BMW Championship. It may have been
correct.
the Cialis Western Open. It might have been something
Exactly.
Western Open.
Rise up for the Cialis Western Open.
Exactly. And I think he was four back of the cut line, four off the cut line on Friday afternoon. He was playing late in the afternoon, and he birdied the final four to make the cut. And I remember I was doing interviews back then, and I was there for Golf Central for Golf Channel and talking to him afterwards. And then after we were done, he put his arm on my shoulder and said, "You know what people just don't understand? I try just as hard in the beginning and the
Yeah.
middle as I do at the end. When I saw that I was four back of the cut line and needed to finish strong, it's not like I tried any harder to finish
Yeah.
strong. I just play the same way all the time, whether it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday." And that day, I remember walking away thinking, man, that was one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of guys on the PGA Tour who are that far off the cut line late on a Friday, and
Pack it in.
they're probably thinking of, checking out of a hotel and getting on a flight that night. And Tiger was never thinking that. It's a remarkable streak, 142 in a row. I'm talking about a guy who plays probably 16 weeks a year, 17 weeks a year. Three or four of those were no cut events. So you're talking about a span of 10, 12, 15 years of
Yeah.
making the cut every single time, which means he never had 36 holes off. He never was bad for 36 holes in its totality. It's a remarkable streak.
And sometimes it just
It,
takes 9 holes, right? It's just like
Yeah.
a
yeah.
39 on Friday
Yeah,
afternoon.
exactly.
And he just was able to fight through all that.
Amazing.
Or a 40 on his first professional nine at Augusta, followed by a 30.
Yeah.
And that turned that around.
And then win by 12. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that sort of alludes to some of the things that people are having, I don't want to say issues with, but questions about with Scotty. He's sort of gotten into this year, even though I agree with you. I thought he answered that question perfectly before the players about it's not going well. It's like, well, would you say that way if my career this season was flipped and I did 24 T22, 4, 3 and a win? Would you still feel the same way? Which I
Right.
thought was a perfect way to frame a response to that question. But it does seem like, and you see this in almost every sport, which I think it's a really neat way to sort of explain it to a lot of people. When you are winning all the time and you are winning majors at the rate that Scotty has won since 2022, sometimes the energy level is hard to bring on a
Yeah.
Thursday afternoon round or Thursday morning round at a regular tour stop at 8 a.m. You see, you talk to folks in the NFL, they'll say the Chiefs just look tired this past year. They've been to 3 straight Super Bowls. They'd won 2 of them.
Yeah.
It's hard to get up for week 3 in September. And I think that may be some of the mental struggle that Scotty's dealing with this year, and we're not seeing these amazing results. He's got a little of that Rory from 2022 and 2023. Those Thursday rounds, they don't come out firing like they used to.
It's interesting, Trey. One thing that you have to get used to on the PGA Tour is the travel, the hotel life, food on the road, working out, hitting balls, practicing, playing, pro-ams every Wednesday, all that kind of stuff. What people don't realize until they actually see it in person is when you're the number one player in the world and you are not just there as a flash in the pan, but you actually sustain that type of greatness over the course of 4 years now for Scotty. Every step he takes, there's a camera there, there are microphones there, the biggest crowds are there, the tee times are, where he needs to be as far as television and being in featured groupings, and the pressure is always high every step of the way, and that can wear you down. Every round he plays, every round, he gets interviewed afterwards, and not just by CBS, NBC, Golf Channel, ESPN Plus, by PGA Tour Radio, by locals, by this, by that, by Golf Writers, all these kinds of places. And then you put that on top of the fact that he's the favorite every week. To your point about the Chiefs, everybody's coming after him. Look, I hate Duke basketball. I grew up a huge Maryland fan. Even though I grew up in the city of DC, huge Maryland basketball fan. It's ingrained in our brain to hate Duke basketball. Duke basketball, every game, they get the other team's best.
Correct.
Scotty, an individual sport is the same. Every time someone plays with Scotty, every city he goes to, people want to see him. Everything is pressurized when you're the number one player in the world for that long and you're that great. I think he handles it beautifully, but you have to figure the pressure pops a little bit every once in a while. And it has, the last couple of starts early in those tournaments. But he's gathered himself and played all right, but he needs to play better over 4 days if he's going to win another green jacket. He cannot put himself in a big hole at Augusta and try to chase it down. That's not the kind of golf course that'll allow you to do that.
Especially with the way some of these guys are playing, like Matt Fitzpatrick, who looks like he is just green jacket ready with the way things are going. Steve Sands with us on Golf, like Cameron Young, absolutely. Steve Sands with us here. We'll get to some Commanders talk in a minute, but we always take questions from the audience. We have a bunch of them coming in, and Duncan, our producer, is going to chime in here. Duncan, we have a question in here for Steve.
Yeah, and it's kind of a ironic username. Sean Taylor.
Duncan, are you muted?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Duncan. All right. Here's the text I got from Duncan. Yes, just tee me up. Duncan, this was me teeing you up. So when you figure out how to work your microphone again, we'll get to that.
You got
this wouldn't happen.
There he is. There's Duncan.
This wouldn't happen on NFL Live.
Thank you very much.
Only happens on Golf Live.
We're just having fun here with all this technology.
Fire away.
Yeah, so it's from Sean Taylor 7442, which is, ironic with the skins.
Sean Taylor, wow.
Yeah. The question is, I wonder if Roll-Up will be the one to actually put some kind of pace of play penalties in place and actually enforce them. So any thoughts there?
That's a great point, and it's relative because Matt Fitzpatrick was not happy with his playing partner. And Steve, he's gotten a lot of blowback from fans. I'm like, he's in the right here. Like, slow play is an issue on the PGA Tour. It needs to be addressed sternly.
Yeah, it's tricky though. Here's why, Trey. What not you and Justin, but what the audience doesn't realize about pace of play is, let's say we get off the air at NBC at 6 p.m. Eastern. Almost every time, 90% or higher, it is done at 5:56, 5:55, 5:57. We can wrap up, do our thing, and get it out to late local news, whatever you're going to do. We don't show on TV does not do the pace of play justice because we don't show that. We don't show guys walking around and looking things. And we do show that aim point thing, which is awful, by the way. And aim point's a killer. And I hope college kids and great amateurs do not follow the lead of PGA Tour players to do that. I think that slows play down. However, it's legal, so they can do it. Yeah. The pace of play issue is fascinating because when you start split tees and threes, and you have to flip the nines, you've got to give those people on the first nine a chance to clear the 10th before someone has a tee time on the 10th and then slows everybody down when they're making the turn. So I think that the amount of players in fields is a reason that there are not able to finish rounds on Thursday night or Friday night before a cut is made. And then as long as it's kept under 78 on the weekend, they usually are fine. But pace of play is a problem on the PGA Tour, but I think it's more of an internal problem. People who are watching golf on TV don't recognize the pace of play issue because things just move along. We go from this shot to this shot, this hole to this hole. All of a sudden we get off the air at 1 minute before 6 o'clock and nobody knows any different. But pace of play needs to be addressed. It never really truly has been. There are penalties to it, but they're not truly enforced. The rules guys on the PGA Tour are the best in the world. they would love to get pace of play to be quicker, and maybe Rolap and his team will implement some stringent rules there as opposed to maybe some of the ones that are in place now. But it doesn't seem to have a lot of appetite out there. You get some guys complaining. The fast guys complain about the slow guys. The slow guys never say a word about the fast guys. So we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But right now, there's no answer for you. I apologize on the pace of play. It's an issue, but it's kind of not a visual one on TV because people usually don't see it. It's more of an internal one.
Well, it speaks to the mentality of the game more than anything, because if you're going to have to deal with it, you're going to have to deal with it.
Yes.
And you're going to have to find a way to push through. And Fitzpatrick even alluded to it. He felt like he went through a 3-hole stretch on Sunday where he was off his game simply based on the pace of play of his playing partner.
Oh, it's a real thing for the guys who play quickly, for sure.
Yeah. All right, Steve, we don't want to take up too much of your time. So
got all the time in the world for it, Trey. Come on.
I love you for that, brother. Are you satisfied with what your Commanders have done in the offseason?
If you asked my 3 sons, who are diehards, they're now in their 20s and they just live for them. They're up and down. They would have liked Adam Peters to be just a little bit more aggressive. Let's see what happens with Ayuk. Get Jaden some weapons maybe in the draft. I'm not a huge running back draft guy if you have a top 10 pick, but if Jeremiah Love is sitting there at 7, he's going to be awfully difficult to pass up on, because boy, could he help Jaden Daniels. Tunsil re-signing was a big one. Getting a couple of defensive linemen was big. The kid who made the shot for Kentucky off the glass to send the Santa Clara game to overtime, his brother was a defensive lineman for the Chargers, and the Skins just signed him. He's a heck of a player. So, we'll have to wait and see. But if Jaden's healthy, Trey, then we've got a shot. If he can't stay healthy, then it's going to be a problem.
Listen, that's the only knock on him coming out.
For sure.
It's the body type. It's.
You ever seen him in person?
Yeah, he's slender.
Slender. He's a great player, great athlete, terrific kid. He is slim, man. He is slim out there. He cannot take hits, man.
RG3 situation. There's no question about that.
Stop yourself.
No. What I'm saying is, I'm saying physically comparable.
No, stop.
They're slender.
RG3 couldn't slide.
Too soon,
Trey. First of all, he couldn't slide.
The worst part about this is I had a baseball picture because RG3 went to Baylor, I went to Baylor, and he's like, you posted a picture of you as a baseball player as a kid. How do you not know how to slide? Make it make sense to me. I don't understand.
It's remarkable that he could not slide. Just incredible.
All right, enough about that. Listen, Stevie, we appreciate your time, brother. Continued success. We love listening to you over the last couple of weeks, and we'll see what happens going forward to Augusta.
I appreciate you, Trey. Always good to be with you. Justin, always great to see you too, my man. Keep it up.
Thanks, Steve. Really appreciate you.
All right, buddy.
Steve Sands with us. Always good to catch up with him. And when we come back on Golf Live, we'll take a look at what went on in Africa over the weekend and what to make of Bryson DeChambeau's very emotional response to yet another victory. Stay with us. Hey, just a reminder, Golf Live with me, Trey Wingo, is live every Tuesday now at 4 o'clock Eastern. That's 1 o'clock Pacific and 11 a.m. Hawaiian. It's me and the great Justin Ray, who is the Tiger Woods of golf researchers, breaking down everything happening in golf each week across the globe. We'll also have guests, and we're reacting to your questions in real time. So if you want to actually be a part of the conversation instead of just watching clips later, join us live Tuesdays, 4 o'clock Eastern, Trey Wingo Golf on YouTube with the great Justin Ray. Hey, before we get to the next segment, just want to clue you in on something. If you've got a question for us, do us a favor, throw it in the super chat right here on YouTube. And I mean this, we answer every single super chat, not just the ones that are easy, not just the ones that are flattering, because we don't really have any of those. We'll answer all of them. If you're taking the time to support the show, the least we can do is respond. Just let's make sure it's not anything profane, because, it's a family show. So if you've got something on your mind, drop it here in the super chat and we will respond. All right, good people, I need a small favor from you here. If you're watching this and you're enjoying it, hit that like button on YouTube, repost it on X or Twitter, and leave a comment wherever you're listening from. It really does help the show grow. Leave a comment. I read them sometimes. I probably shouldn't, but I do. We all have guilty pleasures. And make sure you subscribe to both channels, Trey Wingo and Trey Wingo Golf, and hit the bell so you know when something new drops. We're building some really special things and doing it the right way, and I need you to stay on top of it. Do these things, and we'll all grow together. So if you consider yourself more of an audio person, look, I totally get it. The Trey Wingo Network is now available on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, etc., 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 wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen in the car, gym, on a walk, wherever you carve out that little space where you need to just get away from everything. Same conversations, just without the camera. Hey, subscribe across the platforms and share. All right, welcome back to Golf Live. Glad you're with us, whether you're streaming on YouTube or on Twitter. Trey Wingo here in Maui, Justin Ray on Space Mountain or inside SoFi. SoFi, is it SoFi Stadium? SoFi Arena? What is it?
SoFi Center.
SoFi Center. God,
Starship
that was the one I couldn't
Enterprise.
come up with. Yes.
We just drifted past Jupiter, I believe. Yeah, it's an awesome facility. You gotta see this place. It's unbelievable.
I can't wait.
6-story
I will.
screen. I mean, the arena experience is great. We'll get you down here soon, man.
Dude, I will make my way out.
1000%.
So absolutely. So once again, thanks to Steve Sands for joining us. Always great to chop it up with him. He's so knowledgeable and just so much fun to talk to about the game we all love, as well as his commanders. And we have to acknowledge that there was another great live event over the weekend in South Africa. The crowds were incredible. It was a great finish. Bryson DeChambeau hanging on and taking care of Jon Rahm down the stretch. It's pretty much everything you would want from a live event. And, Bryson was really emotional after that win, Justin, basically saying, I can't even tell you why I'm so emotional right now. But there was something else going on with Bryson that just sort of made this victory in South Africa that much sweeter.
Yeah, he talked about how much his teammates mean to him, and that's an element of golf that's not there on the PGA Tour, right? You mean you have your behind the scenes team, whether it's your caddy,
Right.
your manager, your family, and all that, but not 3 other guys wearing the same shirt and hat, right? So I'm not 100% sure why he was so emotional. He didn't quite articulate it, why he was, but to your point, they found something with these underserved markets on live.
I
Whether
agree.
It's Adelaide or what we saw here. This was kind of Adelaide too, really, in terms of how they found a place that was underserved when it comes to professional golf, put together a really good event. The fans came out, looked fantastic. Is the competition all the way there? Obviously, that's something we'll talk about, and maybe not quite, but I don't know how many of these markets there are around the world, but they've done a good job of finding them. Maybe they find one in South America somewhere, where Argentina or something like that, where there's another market like this. But I thought it was really impressive from a crowd and a fan experience perspective.
I completely agree. And I have to think, if we're looking at this objectively and honestly, this has been the best start to a live season since live became a thing. You can question the overnight event in Saudi Arabia where everyone was like, really? Are we really doing this? But since then, I think it's been really impressive. The Anthony Kim story's been amazing. You see Bryson win a couple of times. You had Jon Rahm finally in over a year breakthrough for a win. So from that perspective, I think this has really been successful. And you mentioned the crowds. The crowds have been great. And there's been a lot of atmosphere. Gary Player was very effusive in a post about how great he thought the tournament was. But I think what a lot of people in the livosphere, for lack of a better term, or live bots have an issue with, or I have an issue with them, is that 2 things can be true at the same time. It was a great event. There was a lot of energy. The crowds loved it. And we had a great champion in Bryson DeChambeau, back-to-back. You saw the emotions, battling back Jon Rahm. All of that is great. But don't sit there and tell me it's the equivalent of a stop on the PGA Tour. And the best example I can give you is this. It's like going to a Savannah Bananas game or a great AA ballpark where they have fun games for the kids and the crowds, and somebody hits a double off the left field wall to bring in the go-ahead and run in the bottom of the 9th inning to win. And that's fun, and that's exciting, but it's still AA baseball. And to be quite honest, you can have all these other things that are true and have a great champion. And again, I think this is the best season Liv has ever had so far, by a mile. But at the end of the day, AA is still AA. And you have some numbers that sort of can explain why it's nice and it's energetic, but to say that it's on the same level as even something like the Valspar, you're kidding yourselves.
Yeah, my friends at Data Golf do a really good job of empirically ranking fields, and this is separate from, the OWGR. We know they started giving points to live events earlier this year. That was big news, but they've been grading fields globally for a long time. Neutral observer from a distance. The field that Bryson beat in South Africa was about half as strong as the Valspar Championship field by their metrics. Valspar Championship's not the Players. It's
No,
not Bay Hill. It's not
it's not the
it's not
Memorial.
Riviera. It's not the Memorial. This is like Valspar was a fun event, but the field, let's be honest, was what, a C plus. So,
Right.
and if you think empirically speaking from a data perspective, Bryson's beating 57, 58 guys, a handful of them are somewhere near his level in terms of world class. Not to say it's a terrible field. Like, there are a lot of exciting, entertaining tournaments like the DP World Tour and everything. But to your point, yes, it's not the same. It's not apples to apples. The field is not the same, and does lead you to take a little bit less stock in what Bryson's done here, winning these
Correct.
tournaments before he heads to the Masters. It still leaves it to be a little bit more of a question mark when you juxtapose that to say like what Matt Fitzpatrick did or Cameron Young did to win the Players. You just get a different feeling coming off of that and knowing what you can rely on in terms of what your eyes have seen on the course performance, comparing that to beating a live field again.
Well, and I think this is the really interesting thing for Live going forward because remember, when we started, no cuts, 54 holes. Let's have fun. Let's wear shorts, you know? And now, okay, that wasn't working. Let's just be honest about it for a variety of reasons. And so they adapted. And it's now 72 because that's the only way they were getting world golf ranking points. That's the only way. You play 4 rounds. So they had to have that adjustment. The question then I have for the long-term sustainability is how do you make it work? Because if we're just being honest about it, if we're just being honest, Live was created to be a disruption. It was not created to grow the game. Now, ancillarily, it may be growing the game in places like Singapore and South Africa and Adelaide, and that's great. But if we're being honest about it, the entire point was to be enough of a disruptive force to sit down and have the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour come together and say, hey, let's figure this thing out. And then they tried that, and that didn't work. So now they're stuck with, okay, now we need to have these teams become profitable, right? That was the goal. Scott O'Neill said we want to have this many teams become profitable this year, and we need to start making a profit. Well, the entire point was never to make a profit. I mean, the whole premise was don't worry about that. We're just going to throw our money around and swing our big bags and see what happens. So now they're stuck in this situation where, okay, we tried that. That didn't work. Now we're going back to a more traditional format, but now we have to make money. It's like they're the PGA Tour 4 years ago.
Yeah, and is that money faucet turned off or at least slowed down a little bit? I know they invested some more money in there, but you've seen global news about that giant artificial city they were building in Saudi Arabia. It was a huge multi-billion-dollar project that's been abandoned. I don't know. I have a difficult time doing anything except analysis on golf and sports, but
Yeah.
it does seem like that could be an issue moving forward if your unlimited money spigot is being turned off or even slowed down a little bit.
Yeah. So again, I thought the event was great. I thought it was very cool. I love the finish. I love the emotion. I love the response from the crowd. But let's just keep it in its proper perspective. And I think the challenge for Live going forward is how do we turn this into something that will make sense financially in the long term because that was never part of the original business plan because it wasn't a business plan. It wasn't a business plan. And anyone with even a remote amount of economics could have told you that because that wasn't their end goal. Now they've shifted the end goal. How do you make it so it becomes the thing that can service these people in Adelaide and Singapore and South Africa, these underserved markets, because they've tapped into something. They've got to figure a way to tap into it before they can tap out on cash. And that sort of is where they are. All right, stay with us. We're coming back, our final break. And when we come back, we have lots of questions from people in the audience, and we want to get to those. So stay with us. We're coming right back on Golf Live. Hey, if you're new here, first of all, welcome. We're glad you found us. We launched this platform really at the beginning of September, late August in 2025, right before the start of the Ryder Cup, which did not go well for the U.S., but this platform has gone way better than we thought it would. It's grown so fast, we really can't believe it. We've had incredible conversations with so many people across sports. Justin Thomas and Kevin Kisner, Brandel Chambly, Dan Lanning, Mike Elko, Daniel Jones, just to name a few. And here's what I'll say. Our conversations are different. It's not the same stuff you'll see everywhere else. We try and take you behind the curtain a little bit to get to know the people we're talking to instead of just asking them rote questions about their last round of golf or their next game. We go a little bit deeper to get real information. No bits, no bullshit, just a ball podcast. And if you've just found us, there's a huge library of conversations waiting for you to consume. We hope you enjoy them. Hey, before we get to the next segment, just want to clue you in on something. If you've got a question for us, do us a favor, throw it in the super chat right here on YouTube. And I mean this, we answer every single super chat, not just the ones that are easy, not just the ones that are flattering, because we don't really have any of those. We'll answer all of them. If you're taking the time to support the show, the least we can do is respond. Just let's make sure it's not anything profane, because, you know, it's a family show. So if you've got something on your mind, drop it here in the super chat and we will respond. All right, good people, I need a small favor from you here. If you're watching this and you're enjoying it, hit that like button on YouTube, repost it on X or Twitter, and leave a comment wherever you're listening from. It really does help the show grow. Leave a comment. I read them sometimes. I probably shouldn't, but I do. We all have guilty pleasures. And make sure you subscribe to both channels, Trey Wingo and Trey Wingo Golf, and hit the bell so you know when something new drops. We're building some really special things and doing it the right way, and I need you to stay on top of it. Do these things, and we'll all grow together. All right, welcome back to Golf Live. Trey Wingo here with Justin Ray. Once again, our thanks to Steve Sands for joining us. And if you like what you see, make sure you follow us on Twitter and follow the YouTube channels, Trey Wingo and Trey Wingo Golf. Justin, apparently we got a lot of comments on the show, so we want to try and get to as many of these as possible before we close out the hour here. So, Duncan, assuming you have perfected the technology of your mic working, and we have, let us fire away with some of the questions.
Proud of you, buddy.
All right, well, we got some fun ones. So Mark here wants to know if Tiger's going to have an ace tonight, plus 5,800. What are your thoughts, Justin?
Justin, are you allowed to delve into gambling as part of the TGL?
Well, there is, like Bushwood, there is no gambling here at Tomorrow Sports. But I will tell you that Tiger, and you can find this information publicly, we've released the holes that are being played. He is playing the shortest par 3. So that's the one that you have the most, mathematically, theoretically, the best opportunity. He looked great in warm-ups, I can tell you that. We'll see. That's still, probably not, but sure, if you want to have some fun tonight, then let it
Probably not, but sure.
By the way,
that's great analysis.
Hold on. Justin, did you say Bushwood?
I think I did, yeah. Oh, excellent.
There you go. Bushwood Country Club, Caddy Day. There we go. All the way around.
Good timely reference by me.
Listen, timeless. You say whatever you want. Timeless, okay? All right, Duncan, what's the next question?
Yeah, a little bit dealing with tonight and at Augusta. What's a realistic outcome for Tiger tonight and at Augusta?
Well, those are two very different things. I think because there's no walking involved, I think he could play really well tonight.
Absolutely. I expect him to hit some good shots. I mean, look, the nature of TGL is he's got 5, 6, 7 full swings that he's going to have to make. Like, this is kind of the nature of the team competition. I'm excited to see that. Excited to see him go head-to-head in singles. As far as Augusta National goes, the question, like Trey and I have said over and over again, it's about the walk. It's not about the golf swing. He knows more about that golf course than anyone else alive. It's all about his ability to walk on all those different surgeries he's had. This will give us a little glimpse into what his golf swing looks like. But look, when he came back the last couple of times, that wasn't the issue. It was his ability to walk the golf course.
Yeah. And again, as we've alluded to several times here, and by the way, it's great that it just shows you once again how much interest people still have in this guy. People can say whatever, he still moves the needle. I mean, the first 2 questions have been about Tiger Woods. And
we said in our production meeting today, Rolling Stone wrote an article about watching Tiger tonight.
Yeah, I mean,
that's not Golf Magazine. That's
no.
That's he's still a flashpoint for culture.
Again, he doesn't move the needle. He is the needle. Is the best way to describe it. All right, Duncan. Next question. What do we got? And Duncan has failed technology yet again.
Would a win? No, I'm here. You got me.
There you go. I do.
Yeah.
Would a win at the Masters mean more for Bryson, Brooks, or Rahm at this point in their career / contracts?
That's a great question.
Can I go
Um,
first?
Yes, I think we're going to have the same answer, but go
I
ahead.
think it's undoubtedly Bryson. I think because of
Yeah.
what he's said in the past about this is a par 68 for me, and like the struggles he had on the greens, and just how outwardly performative some of these moments have been at Augusta National. Not only that, but being in the final pairing with Rory last year and just getting blown out of the water, not being part of it down the stretch. Koepka would be incredible. He'd get the third leg of the Grand Slam. You get a multi Masters winner like Seve Ballesteros from Spain with John Rahm. But I think it's Bryson and Trey. I think you agree.
I do, and I go back to last year where he was miffed that that Rory wouldn't talk to him in that grouping, and it's like, what was that about? Like, I'm pretty sure Tiger was never chatty, when he
It's like
was
Patrick Ewing
throttling
saying, "I can't
somebody.
believe Michael didn't chat me up in the fourth quarter of that
Yeah,
Eastern
like,
Conference Finals game."
what do you think Ben Hogan was saying to people in the final round? Like, no, like that was just like, what are you like? That's the juxtaposition of Bryson, which is so hard because he's going around in people's backyards from his rental house in Augusta and playing, basically putting around with them on their putting greens in their backyards the night before the final round. And then he says stuff like this. I do believe of all the things he said, like you said, it's a par 68 for me. And the fact that he was in the final pairing and he didn't even make the playoff. I think that's the caveat that makes it. I think it would mean more to Bryson than look. Like you said, 3/4 way to the Grand Slam, like Scotty Scheffler for Brooks Koepka in this situation, would be huge. But I think the Bryson story would be the one that would pop off the page.
And
I think we got time for one more. Oh, go ahead.
I'll
Go
throw
ahead.
into real quick with Bryson. His first 6-7 starts at the Masters, lost more than half a stroke per round putting. Last 2 starts at the Masters, plus half a stroke per round putting. Enormous
Yeah.
turnaround. I'm not going to say I'm going to pick him yet. I'm just saying there are some numbers to point to suggest that he's getting better and better on those putting greens.
All right, Duncan, what else we got?
All right, last question. Will Liv be around in 3 years?
That is an unbelievably good question. I think the plan was for it not to be around. I mean, just being honest with Justin, I think the plan was let's cause this disruption, let's force a merger, and then we'll figure it out from there. And then that didn't happen. And they are now thinking of it, like we said in the last segment, in a business model way that was never part of the original thought plan.
That's a perfect timeline to ask about it too. 3 years from now, because you could say like 18 months. Okay, too big for it to fail in that time span. But
Correct.
you look a couple years down the road. Globally, is the economy in a place where Saudi Arabia is still able to push that money into it? Once again, this is not CNBC hour. I don't have any insight into that world, but like 3 years is such a long time for a business that's this volatile to say yes, they're going to still be around. I'll say they will be, but they're going to look differently than they do today. Maybe there's more of an incorporation with the Asian Tour, DP World Tour, something like that. I think they will still be around, but they'll look different than they do right now.
I think that's the best answer because I don't think it's possible for them to continue this spending spree for, losing billions of dollars every year for another 3 years. I think if they want it to be around, they have to adopt a business model that makes sense, which again was never the plan to begin with. And quite frankly, if they can find a way to make that work, I think it's great for golf globally. I really believe that. I really do. But what they set out to do is going to be very different than what it's going to be 3 years from now, if in fact it is still around 3 years from now. We hope this show will be around 3, 4, 5 years from now. We're just getting started. We appreciate your patience with us. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much to all the questions and for all the people that viewed. This is our most viewed show yet, so we're really excited about that. Thanks to Steve Sands for coming by. And from all of us on the con of the Starship Enterprise, and on the happiest place on earth, the 50th state, Trey Wingo and Justin Ray saying thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care, buddy. Have fun tonight. That was great. Really, really good.
I feel like I'm a